Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to a Celtic World, the Tactical Review. My name is Anthony. As always, I'm joined by Paul, and we look at how Celtic went on the weekend. This game we're reviewing Celtic 3, Motherwell 2. Just left it a wee bit late there, but we finally got the result that, not so much what we wanted, but probably the result that we needed. But before we get into that, we like to have a little debrief on how our weekends were. Paul, how are you? And what did you up to before last night's game?
Yeah, I had a relatively quiet weekend, reasonably tame. The better half was down south on holiday with some of the girls, so I was basically just on dog duty for the weekend, but managed to sneak out into the local neighbourhood for a couple of beers here and there with a good buddy of mine, and also off to our world famous barbecue joint to do a little bit of community fundraising as well. Some of the local shops near us unfortunately were lost to fire, and the Big Don's barbecue, in maybe potentially slightly controversial fundraising for a fire-based food business, put on a community barbecue with the aim of raising 100 grand for said businesses, and managed to get out at 105. So yeah, cracking effort by him, his team, the community in general, and a bunch of volunteers. So yeah, just popped in there and bought some bits and bobs, raffle tickets, spent some money, all for a good cause. So did that Saturday morning, then had a few beers to reward myself for my do-gooding in the afternoon with a buddy, and then got home at a reasonable hour for my wife's return the following day. Did a bit of household chores and prepared a roast dinner to get right in the good books. So yeah, all up, quite a smug weekend, topped off by then a delightful result for us, and unfortunately one across the city that has brought some of our enjoyment to an end rather prematurely, perhaps. But yeah, all up, good weekend.
Well, I'd say it's just, postponed it temporarily until the next clown comes through the door. Because, I mean, let's face it, the track record's not great when it comes to that. But we might touch on that a bit later. But we're a Celtic podcast. We'll talk about Celtic because that's the important things. Didn't have too much myself this weekend. The weather was pretty average again on Saturday. It was a bit of a bummer. I thought it was starting to pick up, heading towards summer, but we had a bit of a dose of winter weather again. So went out for some brunch and watched the Grand Prix over the weekend. But apart from that, didn't really do much else. But it was much needed rest, and I was actually quite awake watching Celtic at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. So might make for a better podcast. I don't know, maybe not. But we'll see. We will see. Let's bring in some of the comments.
Let's not build it up too quickly. Let's keep.
I said we'll see. 4:20 somewhere. Good afternoon. All hail to you, sir. I like the intro music. Yes, we're going very professional these days. We're building up to something special. Henrik McLaughlin, bonjour, we Aussie stores. Yes, bonjour to you too, sir. And then we've got a few sniffs. I'm assuming that's just the fact that Russell Martin's no longer in the building. I'm assuming. Rubber Ducky, I hope Paul isn't talking tonight. Can he take him seriously? Well, I'd hate to break it to you, but he's going to be talking a fair bit. So
he's got another comment that it isn't this Paul, thankfully. So I was slightly concerned, but no, not this Paul, another Paul. Yeah, loads of us.
And my old man saying that he actually enjoyed the game. So yeah, there you go. So maybe hell wasn't freezing over to my dad actually enjoyed the game for a change. So we'll get into it. So Paul, we had to avoid a bit of not good history coming into this game. So basically, there were 16 years of history to avoid. 3 consecutive scoreless matches at Parkhead, I believe, was the stat that we were avoiding. And 12 unbeaten games for Motherwell, which I'd totally passed me by before the match. 4 changes. I'll bring up the team sheet. Hang on. 4 changes from the team that played Braga. So our two fullbacks changed. So Colby Donovan and Kieran Tierney out. Interesting enough, Donovan not even making the bench, but Tierney was on the bench. So Ralston coming in at right back, Srirachi coming in at left back, and then double change in the midfield with Rio Hitati and Luke McCowan coming in for the place of Benjamin Negrin and Paulo Bernardo. So 4 changes there, same front 3 that's probably played the last few games now. So obviously trying to get a little bit of a settled front line there, although it's obviously not been firing terribly well. The fact that we're a couple of goalless games, but Paul, I sort of said in the build up there that it was must win, any means necessary. Performance wasn't really important. We're coming into another international break, which feels weird because I felt we've just had one and kind of just have had one, but it's just this weird time of the year where we have a chunk of fixtures punctuated by national duties. But for me, it was just trying to get a win. Doesn't matter how it comes. But how are you feeling coming into this one on the back of a roast dinner?
Yeah, well, until the very, very late point of the match, the roast dinner was the highlight of the day, to be honest. It was... look, I kind of agree with your dad. It was certainly a more entertaining match to watch where the other side comes and does have a go. But we were poor again. I don't think there's any, we can't make any bones about it. We were, for big chunks of the match, again, similar to Braga, we were disjointed and generally off it. But you're right, game like that, especially on the back of recent form, the result's really all that matters. And we found a way. And I was actually starting, Celtic teams down the years and generations, that's in our DNA, is to go to the very last seconds and pull wins out of the fire where it doesn't look like it. That is just the history of Celtic. If you've watched Celtic for a long time, you'll have seen many, many famous last gasp victories. And this was another one, maybe not that particularly famous, but it was a big win and it was an important win. And I think, obviously, there's the point of this show is to get into the nitty gritty of what went on in the game, but kind of setting that aside for a second, really, the 3 points was all that mattered on a day like that. A lot of disgruntlement around the team or the club in general. A lot of gaps in the stadium. Obviously, on the Thursday night, the further protests for now were parked, and there's a big meeting in Glasgow today. I think at 6 p.m. local time, which I guess I don't hold a huge amount of hope out for this first meeting, but hopefully it's the first stepping stone to some sort of progress. So on the backdrop of all of that and the football being poor and results being washed, probably you'd say, a shocker on Thursday and a game that I think we should have probably won that match. And yeah, we were at fault throughout the match, but one shocking decision probably turned it. I think the momentum was with us at that point. But yeah, still a really, really poor result on the back of other poor results. So yeah, great to get the win. I a little bit of me wasn't convinced this team was capable of a result like that in that kind of circumstances. Just, going from not being able to score goals to somehow finding 3, including an absolute last gasp injury time winner. Roller coaster of a match in terms of the emotions, but yeah, getting the job done in the 3 points. I hope it's some sort of watershed moment in the season. I think we're all clinging on to that fact, that hope that it could be a catalyst, but I think we've got more bumps in the road ahead, to be honest, but we'll see.
Well, I sort of said that this chunk of fixtures was going to sort of give us a bit of an idea of how our season's going to go. And I think it's going to be one of these seasons where there's going to be a lot of games like this where we're going to have to grind out a result, even at home. When normally at home, we, in years gone past, we've battered teams 4-5-0, basically studded them, put our subs on, the pressure's just carried on, teams have just given up, and it's basically a damage limitation from their part. But fair play to Motherwell, they came to play football, and they got some joy. Like there was few periods. There was a period in the game either side at half time where they did have a period of dominance in the game and created some really good chances. And they were well worked chances. Their first goal, if that was a Celtic goal, you'd have been very pleased with that. It was well worked. It was patient, very un-SPFL like, really. So I mean, you have to take your hat off to the Motherwell manager. Like, he's definitely got them playing a decent brand of football. And yeah, obviously we'll talk about the second goal for Celtic, where it all came a bit unstuck for them. But apart from that, they played pretty well. And I sort of talked to what my dad said is, like, it was an entertaining game because you had two teams actually trying to play football and having a go at each other. And it doesn't happen very often in Scotland. Like, let's be honest. Like, normally, if you fast forward a week, Hibs just parked the bus for 90 minutes. And that was torture to watch. I mean, a lot of it our own doing, but opposition team wasting time and all sorts of things. So from that point of view, better. But, ultimately at the end of the day, we got the 3 points, very important, but it's Motherwell at home as well. So like, you've got to put it in context and sort of say that these are the sorts of games, if you want to win a league, these are like the ones that are not negotiable. It's just, you have to win them. So, Brendanrodgers has been very clear to say that we're not up to the level that he would expect. And he's the only one that can change that, really. I mean, it's on him. Now that the transfer window's closed, what he's got is what he's got until January. So he's going to have to get a tune out of those players. And he recognises that he's playing Daizen out of position. He recognises that Iheanacho's not up to speed yet. Tinekti is still finding his way, even though he's had a very bright start. It still takes time for these partnerships. And I was talking about it last week, the fullbacks and the wingers linking with each other. And we seem to be chopping and changing fullbacks every game. I mean, that tends to be the area where we seem to be flip-flopping sort of game on game. So we're not necessarily really building that that sort of understanding and unity sort of game in, game out. I mean, last season, like, Greg Taylor pretty much played every game at left back. AJ, when he was fit, was playing every game at right back. So you had that stability, and we just haven't had that this season so far. And I'm hoping that that's something that hopefully sort of starts to settle in a bit and beds in a bit and sort of helps the rest of the team, because our centre-half pairing seems settled at the moment. Our goalkeeper, for better or worse, is settled at the moment. The midfield, well, that's debatable. But I guess your front three, your best front three on paper is Iheanacho, Maeda, and Tinekti. So, he's going to have to persevere with that for the time being and just hopefully find a way to get the chances and go from there. But there was a comment here talking about Bernardo. Thought he played well against Braga, but then maybe Brennan's not a fan of the forward passing. But I thought, we'll get into it in a bit, Paul, right now, but I kind of thought Callum McGregor was culpable for losing the ball a couple of occasions, one of which led to Motherwell's second goal. But we'll come back to that. But I don't think he particularly had a great game. But in saying that, he was the one that could open the scoring for Celtic. So in the 4th minute, he forces a good save from Callum Ward. I don't have an image of it, Paul, but that was the one where they basically Celtic managed to press and won the ball back off Motherwell, who were trying to play it out from the back. Ball just played through, and both Iheanacho and McGregor sort of go for the same ball. And Simon Donnelly was sort of saying at half-time, he was sort of suggesting possibly that Iheanacho should have been the one to sort of strike it, but he left it for, Cal Mack sort of made it his and sort of hit it. And decent strike, but obviously keepers managed to pull a decent save. And yeah, and that, I mean, obviously that that could have made 1-0 and it would be a different game. But yeah, any thoughts, Ellie Dawes?
Yeah, I think on that one specifically, McGregor gets there just literally a fraction ahead of Iheanacho, but I agree with Sid. I think he should get out of the way because he ends up coming onto it and striking it with sort of the inside of his weaker foot, the right. And it's not a great, it's on target, but it's not a great effort, and the keeper blocks it, and I think he goes out for a corner. But Iheanacho's just coming in on his left, just coming slightly in at the other angle, which is obviously his stronger side. And the form he's been in, you would fancy him to probably tuck it away, or at least probably test the keeper to a more significant degree. I think that the key thing about that was, and this was super frustrating throughout the match, we only got it right in pockets, and we did seem to get it right towards the end of the match, and I think that helped us get the winner. But it was a really early example of the fact that if you press that defense as a functioning unit, you know, they wouldn't have been able to live with that. The Motherwell manager is obviously trying to play the same ethos as we do to a degree. Ange definitely had us try to do under kind of at all times under whatever risk. Martin tried to some degree to do it at Rangers. Is that thing where it doesn't really matter how much pressure you're under, you're going to have to pass it out. And that's brilliant as a philosophy, right? We all want to see pass and flow in football. But with the best will in the world, there's a time and a place for putting your foot through it and taking danger away. And absolutely the goalkeeper should have done that for our second. But that wasn't the first time. That goal, the second goal that we scored, that was available to us all match. And we didn't. My biggest frustration in the game was we didn't press well as a unit consistently. So the front three pressed quite well. Tati pressed well. McCowan was nowhere near. And then there was a big gap. And because of that, one passed through the lines and they were out and away. And that's part of where our pressure came from. And that's why we didn't score or create as many chances as we could have, because there was a big, massive gap between the front four and everyone else. And a Motherwell player or two would just float themselves into that gap, and it gave an out ball every single time. I don't know why the skipper or the manager or both doesn't get a grip of that earlier. There's just a huge gaping hole in our midfield, and it meant that we didn't get further up the pitch and put more pressure on them, and it gave them an out ball consistently. And when it did work, suddenly they were on the front foot because they've got numbers, and we've got 4 cut up the pitch, sometimes 5. This was an early example of if you hunt in packs and do it well, and you get your angles right on that press, then you can nick the ball back and they're under real pressure. We should have probably done better with it, but to me, that's the warning sign. You've done that within the first few minutes. Just keep doing it. It's the same as when Tenecti was flying against Kilmarnock in the first game. We had nothing else anywhere else on the pitch. So you'd have just fed him again and again and again and again because he had the fullback on toast. We didn't do that. We gave it to him a bit, but then we messed about and did the horseshoe and other bits of nonsense. I just think if you've found a way to get in behind or on top of a team and put them under real pressure, you turn the screw. You turn the screw until they break, and then you're away and you're up. So yeah, that was a massive frustration. We should have been doing better from it. But yeah, I think the main culprit was probably Luke McCowan and the fullbacks, because that's the press, and McGregor covers the centre backs, and we just weren't. Again, I get it. Players are new to system, combinations are switching, but there must be a pressing instruction for the whole team when the opposition have got the ball, and it just seemed like some players were on a completely different wavelength. Engels did it well when he came on. He sort of took up the Hatate position, and his pressing is always good. It was great against Braga when he came on. It's one of the huge frustrations I've got as to why he's not in the team. His pressing is amongst the best we've got. Negrin, on the other hand, he presses like I go out for a jog, like barely moving. Like he's so half-hearted in the press. He had a good cameo, but I just don't get what the instructions are around our sort of pressure on the opposition. It's almost something that you only really notice how disjointed it is now when it isn't working, compared to when last season, when we never really talk about our press that much because it was so well worked. It just happened, and therefore teams got penned in, and eventually we got the ball back. But you can now see how good the pressing was previously and how cohesive and coherent it was now that it's disjointed.
I think Kyogo probably helped with that front three pressure. And since he's left the team, then you've really got Maeda, whereas before it was Maeda and Kyogo always hunting in the pack. And then you had Hatate and whoever the other midfielder was up their arse. And it was just like, they just couldn't get out. They couldn't live with it. There was like 4 players around the ball in no time. But you're right. When it worked, it worked. But unfortunately for us, there was a few instances where they didn't, and there was one on 15 minutes where it really was a Liam Stales sliding challenge that intercepted which would have been a one-on-one with Schmeichel. It was a well-timed tackle, so Liam Stales did well there. But again, that came from just getting passed around, and basically that press on it was on their left or right hand side. They got out far too easily, and we were all out of position. And yeah, it's like I said, it happened a few times, and that was probably the first sort of warning sign, if you want to call it that Motherwell weren't just here just to sit and defend. Like, they were quite sort of content to sort of get out and cause us some problems. So and the Australian forward, which I'm not even going to try and say his name because
we'll call him the Big Aussie.
The Big Aussie, he did particularly well leading the line. So, but yeah, so that was on 15 minutes. But 25 minutes is where we have our first real sort of breakthrough. I do have some images of this, so bear with me. I'll bring one up. This is the strike. But obviously before that, Tanecki drives the byline. He draws a corner kick. The corner kick gets overhit, but this is where Iheanacho sort of drives in at goal on the right-hand side of the goal. Sort of gets a shot off, cuts it back. Keeper, I don't know how it deflects all the way out to Cal McGregor, but it does. And he sort of hits it on I'm sure it was on the volley or on the half volley. And Regan Charles Cook, I say stuff that up. Regan Charles Cook gets his body in the way, but unfortunately for him, also gets his arm in the way. And the referee, in all fairness, spots it in real time and awards a penalty kick. And not even Michael Stewart can argue with this one. He thought it was a stonewall stick-on penalty as much as you can get for these handball decisions. Everyone can agree it was goal-bound, and his arm was in an unnatural position, and it struck his arm outside the silhouette, and blah, 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 blah. So there was not much protest from Motherwell either. So it did go to VAR for a check. But yes, it was a penalty, and in a Iheanacho, again, very comfortable to the start step, but again, enough power to send the keeper the wrong way and made it 1-0. And you're thinking, maybe it's trying to be a smooth running day at the office, but part of me was thinking, probably not. But yeah, it was actually, the move itself was quite well done, and like I said, it was just at that point I just felt we were building a bit of pressure on Motherwell. There was just a few little. We were just starting to build a bit of sort of pressure in their box, and this was sort of the culmination of that. But I just felt we were sort of building towards something, so it was nice to. And actually, the ricochet here, it forces the keeper to make like a double save. There was a strike. I don't know who struck it. It may have been Starachi. He hit it, and then Maeda had a header as well. So like it was a bit of a skirmish in the goal before like the penalty was clearly awarded, sort of thing. But just felt there was a bit of pressure there, and I kind of thought at that point we were good for a goal. But yeah, that was kind of where we're up to at 20-25 minutes. Paul, anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think Iheanacho, he drops the shoulder and sells the defender a great dummy, gets himself on the sort of in towards the byline, then he sort of gets his body wrapped around it to bend it back towards the keeper with his left. I think the reason why it ricochets quite so far is the keeper sort of flies a leg at it. He doesn't get a proper like traditional save on it. He just throws whatever he can get at it, which is I think a foot or a leg, and it sort of pings out to the edge of the box. The only thing I thought here is I was waiting to see a still that had that arm just floating outside of the box, and therefore was he inside or was he outside? So the check took a long time for what looked like a relatively routine handball. So I can only assume that was the only thing that they were holding up, just to double check that his arm. I think it was the trailing arm. So yeah, it was behind him, which meant it was inside the box. So yeah, probably. Whilst we hadn't set the header on fire at this point, pressure and a general build up, I thought we were good value for it at that point. And yeah, in normal home games, when we are firing, you'd sort of go, well, here we go. That's the starter for a few more. But the way things have gone in recent weeks, I didn't really have much confidence that would be the case. I didn't expect to necessarily drop a goal quite so quickly. Which obviously we did before halftime. but yeah, I think this is a team at the minute where one's never going to be enough. Like there's always, as much as we've kept quite a lot of clean sheets and we've struggled to score at the other end, you just think that there's, we don't defend set pieces well. This is a basic cross at the box. We don't defend that well either. We're architects of our own downfall in terms of how we give the ball away in our final third. Like if you look back over the last few games that we've lost goals, nearly I don't think I can think of a goal which we weren't the architects of it in terms of mistakes or slack play or poor marking or daft decision making. And I guess you can make that argument about nearly anything, but I just think the way we are at the minute and the disjointed nature of the team and the lack of not knowing our best team, particularly through the middle, means that we're susceptible to losing goals.
Yeah, I mean the real that sort of turnover passing error rate that we've got at the moment seems to be, how do you lose that? Like it's the same midfield, like McGregor, Hattati, like they should be able to hit a pass, but we seem to be turning the ball over in bad areas a lot more frequently, and it's a concern. It's like, well, how do you lose that, or how does that creep into your game? But anyway, I think
there's two things there. Is one, there's maybe more than two things. In terms of the players giving the ball away, they're not on absolute great form. There's a lack of confidence kicking around, and players are being chopped and changed in multiple positions. Fullbacks are chopping and changing. Central midfielders are chopping and changing. Not just the players are changing, but that means obviously the combinations around them are changing. So it doesn't take much to be 6 inches, a foot off here and there in terms of where you want to play a pass, where you think your mate's going to be. So that is absolutely, we're seeing that. And then some players just are still getting to know their teammates. And again, I'm like a broken record with the poor recruitment and the timing of that means that players aren't match fit. Players don't know their mates. Players, barely know who they're going to be playing with from week to week. The fact that we're in poor form means the team is and we're playing 2 games a week, including Europe. We're chopping and changing the side for that, which means, there's no fluency. But players need to start stepping up. Like there's no way we should be struggling at home to the degree we have in the last 2 games to Hibs and Motherwell. However well they play and however well they come and set themselves up, our players should be stepping up, particularly the ones that are getting an opportunity to be rotated in that maybe aren't the absolute first pick. And I just think there's not enough players taking responsibility. And I put the captain into that category as well. Like his form is a worry. Now, yeah, he's played 50, 60 games a year for 10 seasons pretty much straight, but he's still only 32, right? The legs shouldn't be gone at this point. He's still a fair bit younger than Scott Brown when everybody said, oh, Scott Brown's done. And then Brendanrodgers came in and he got another good couple of years out of him. And in fact, some of his peak years was after people thought he was done and dusted. So yeah, like we really need the players need to start fighting, but some of that's got to come from the manager as well. Like I feel like he's been a bit passive. He needs to really stamp his authority both on the training ground and on the match day. And I think he just needs to maybe accept that you got the eye test. I think he's got to revert to that a little bit. Like there's clearly players coming in that are playing fringe roles in various games, and they are producing much better than the players that have been picked for the start, and they can't seem to get a starting jersey. And I think generally the bar's just dropped overall. Like we as a whole,
it looks like a team that's a little bit devoid of leadership. Like, it looks like a bit of a lack of leadership. And, you've got the likes of Stales, Carter Vickers, Schmeichel, Kalmack. You've got players there who are senior players in the team. So, like, it's not like they're all injured and you're playing youngsters. You've got seasoned pros in that team. Like, they've really got a lead. But just as an aside, I mean, with the post-match interview, it was Tyza Maid and Balakwisha. And I was actually quite surprised. Balakwisha's English wasn't that great. it was actually quite broken. And I'm thinking, here's a lad who hasn't really managed to establish himself in the team yet. I mean, it's still early days. I'll keep caveating that for the next 6 months. But if English isn't his first language, there's just one more barrier that you have to break down. Like it's one more thing you have to overcome. And it's just interesting. Like I thought playing in Belgium, like his English would be very fluent, but it really wasn't. And Dyson was back to getting the translator out of the Japanese, so he wasn't trying any English. So you definitely still have that language barrier within the team. So like it must be a real challenge, unless Brendan's learned Japanese in the last couple of years. I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them. But yeah, it's just interesting. But yeah, it was just an aside. Warning signs on 37 minutes, Paul. There's a chance for Motherwell. The ball just played through down our left-hand side, and Srirachi just slips inadvertently at a really bad moment. Motherwell winger gets the ball across. Schmeichel comes out and pulls a decent save, takes the sting out of it, and then Carter Vickers just sort of half clear it, and then ends up kicking it straight to Schmeichel, who picks the ball up. And I'm thinking, yeah, that wasn't deliberate, but again, it was one of those ones where I just sort of petered out. But you kind of thought that was a little bit too easy. Like again, Motherwell breaking our lines. All of a sudden, it was their forward line against our back line, and our midfield's nowhere to be seen, sort of thing. And so I was sort of like, okay, that's not great. And then literally 3 minutes later, we have a potential foul up the park. Rio Atati, he goes down very, very easily. Seen them given, probably went down too easily, whatever. But point is, it wasn't given. So they bomb down their right-hand side. So from there, we win the ball back. And there's a whole series of passing here. So Stales passes it to Schmeichel, back to Stales, to Srirachi, back to Stales, then out to McCowan. And this is where it all comes undone, because McCowan plays the ball in front of Anthony Ralston. So there's a bit of an argument that pass was a bit of a danger ball, put Ralston, a bit of a hospital ball, put Ralston in a bit of danger. But Ralston's first touch is terrible and takes a bad pass and makes it worse. So Motherwell will recycle the ball, get the ball across into the ball. Callum McGregor, terrible clearance, doesn't break. Motherwell will recycle again, patient build up, get the ball out wide. Srirachi not close enough to the winger. Cross comes in. For some reason, Carter Vickers is turned around, looking over at the 18-yard line, thinking someone's coming in, but there's no one there. Meanwhile, your Aussie striker has just nipped in front of him and in between him and Stales. And a fantastic finish, like diving header. Stales, yes, I think Crawley could have done better. I think most of the back line could have done better. There's enough blame to go around. 5 yards out, should Schmeichel be coming for that? I mean, there's lots of finger pointing to be had, Paul. So I mean, it's a series of mistakes. I think probably try to overplay it a little bit from left back, not really getting out, where you maybe think that we're talking about Motherwell's downfall in the second half, but maybe Schmeichel should just put his foot through it and just got us to reset and clear our lines, or Stales or one of the other players that had their foot in the ball at one point. But yeah, tried to overpass it, and yeah, it ended up backfiring massively in one each.
You're right. There's plenty of blame to go around in this one. I think, like any goal, usually it's a culmination of multiple errors. But there's definitely a few people that need to carry the can more than others. I've not got that much of an issue with McCowan's pass. Yes, he plays it from fullback into the middle. But the only reason it becomes a danger is because Anthony Ralston's first touch is about 3 yards from his body. And here we go, right? I don't want to put the boot into Anthony Ralston. He's played hardly any football, so he's going to be rusty as well. But if you're playing for Celtic, that ball's got to stick. It's not exactly leathered at him. He's just bent it into the middle of the area and he stepped onto it. His first touch, half a yard in front of him, a yard in front of him, he should be running onto it and then playing it away to somebody else. And he takes a heavy, very heavy touch. The Motherwell player then ends up closer to the ball than he is. His next tackle would be a foul. So Ralston's the first key player that's got a problem, I think. Srirachi, yeah, he could press it a bit better. Yes, McGregor could get it, but do a bit more on the clearance. I've actually got, and I'll get heat to say, oh, you pick on Scales again. I've got a real problem with Scales here. Yes, he's unlucky because the ball does just bounce in front of him. But one of the things that Scales is excellent at, and give him his due, he's a limited player. We've had those conversations, but I really rate his blocking ability, his covering ability, his in the air, and this should be meat and drink to him. He plays everyone on side because he doesn't know what's happening behind him. So I've got no real issue with that. But if you are playing everyone on side and you're the first man and the ball's coming in your channel, you've got to win it. You've absolutely got to win it because you don't know what he's got. Clearly got no idea what's happening behind him. And then he doesn't. And then after that, we're in real trouble. Yep. Carter Vickers isn't as tight as he could be. But if the ball stopped through the channel, then we don't have anything to worry about. It's been blocked out for a corner and we reset. So yeah, there's the whole back line from obviously Ralston on the right. The centre backs make a pig's ear of it, and the left back doesn't press well enough. And yeah, McCowan and McGregor, who were probably our two weakest midfielders all day, including all the substitutes, they didn't really cover themselves in glory either. So I'm not really going to pick on Schmeichel for not coming into that channel. We saw in the cup final when he did, he made a pig's ear of it and pretty much scored an own goal. So yeah, it's just a really sloppy goal to lose. I know you said at the top of the show, they played some nice football and moved it around, and they did, right? Yeah, they passed it well. But if I'm looking at Celtic, we've just not covered ourselves in glory at all there, from poor control and heavy touches to lack of pressure on the ball, and then not when the real danger comes in. Scales has got to be busting a gut. His job as a defender is to stop the ball ending up in the back of the net. He's got to block that ball coming in before it gets to the striker. So yeah, plenty of blame to go around. But yeah, it's an absolute terrible time to lose a goal. We've only been up for 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and now we're going in when we should have been going in with a bit of an upbeat position. We go in flat, and yeah, we've got a bit of another mountain to climb again.
We had the little sort of half chance right before half time. Made a sort of drive and run. Here's a 1-2 with Hatate. Gets the sort of across goal, but the Motherwell defender managed to sort of dig out a clearance on the sort of 6-yard line. And that was probably the only real sort of other sort of sniff we had between going one each and half time. So Paul, 52 minutes, we're straight into their we're not winner, but take them into the lead. For me, Ralston, there's two culprits here of this one. So one is Callum McGregor, so he loses the ball in the first place. Again, dispossessed rather easily. No like shout of it being a foul or anything like that. Just a clean tackle, dispossessed. Shouldn't have been caught on the ball. Was caught on the ball. Ball breaks. Mangala here, he absolutely leaves Ralston stone cold dead a pace. Ball gets cut across, and Sriracha, pretty lazy foot left in. You can sort of see it here in the blurry image. His foot obviously stamping on the Motherwell player there. He didn't really protest too much. He thought he dived, and he's trying to say to the referee, "Don't book me." So kind of thought like there wasn't much of it, and then I sort of went, did he catch him there? It didn't look like he should have got the ball first. And then the VAR check comes, and I'm watching Celtic TV, and Peter Grant goes, "No way could that be a penalty." And I went, there's a good chance that this is going to be a penalty. I saw the first replay, and I went, "That's a penalty." Like,
as soon as you saw them, like they looked at it about 6, 7, 8 times again. Like as soon as the first one, you saw that on the first one, he's like, "Well, he stood on his foot." Like it doesn't matter if it's, there's no malice in there. It's not like I don't think he's intended to stamp on his foot. He's ran and tried to block, and he's got a bit of an overlap on the toe and the boot. It's a penalty all day long. But I get what Granty was saying. Obviously, the player probably just felt that a brush of contact. He probably didn't think that was really going to, enough in full pace to put him down. But he's felt a little bit of contact, and he has made a meal of it. Not dissimilar to Rio Hatate's, actually. I think there's probably a similar amount of contact to the free kick that Hatate didn't get given, which obviously ended up with the ball in the back of the net for us, against us in the first half. And yeah, when the sort of ref is looking at it, he is then obviously worried that he might get booked because he has made a meal of it. But yeah, it's contact. It's a penalty. It's one of the easier. Like VAR's had two decisions, one to make, one to check, and they're super easy. Not difficult for well, you think I thought Thursdays wasn't difficult for the VAR, but apparently it was. So yeah, these were pretty easy. Still took too long, but yeah, Stonewall penalty, and the big Aussies tucked it away with aplomb and put us in a real hole. And I'll be honest, at that point, I didn't fancy us. I really didn't. Certainly not if you didn't get back into the game quickly, which it took a wee while.
Peter Grant just repeats himself constantly. Yeah, Peter's a better halftime summarizer than a 90-minute co-commentator. I much prefer Simon Donnelly on co-coms.
Yeah,
and Peter just giving his thoughts at halftime and full time. If you're not in the mood, you can just mute him. Doesn't matter.
Unfortunately, Celtic TV have got a same ridiculous rotation system and don't know their best team and positions as well as the first team. Because yeah, you're spot on. I actually think Grant is a very good tactical summarizer, but he in the heat of the game where he's asked to be co-coms, he kind of gets a bit flustered and he's not really on top of it. Whereas I think Simon Donnelly, obviously being that bit younger and being closer to the game, he's probably better on co-coms, despite his butchering of players' names. That probably needs to be brushed up. I noticed Paul Cudahy had learned how to say Tenecti this week, which was good. He'd obviously had some sort of training in midweek because
maybe Gav got hold of him. You never know.
Yeah. So yeah.
So we rung the subs in at 60 minutes, and I think it made a difference because the subs obviously had an impact this week. But like I say, last week I thought he made his subs far too late against Hibs. So this week made them the 60-minute mark that he normally makes them at. So triple change. Triple change. So Negrin, Engels, and Forrest coming on for Tenecti, McCowan, and Hattati. And then 4 minutes later, Kieran Tierney coming on for Marcelo Strachey. So effectively a quadruple change in that sort of 60 to 65 minute window. And I kind of felt that the impetus of the game sort of lifted a gear from then on in, Paul. The fact that we're obviously a goal down, I kind of felt that kind of spurned us on a bit, and you're kind of thinking, how could we not have done this from the beginning? But I just sort of thought that we're sort of starting to show glimpses that, maybe find a way to get an equaliser. And once you get an equaliser, then, Motherwell might panic, and you don't know. I mean, maybe not, but you're sort of thinking you'd already get one before you can get another one. Like at this point, you take a draw, but you just got to sort of say, got to try and find a way to get back in the game. So there was a chance in 63 minutes. So Strachey sort of tried to make up for his penalty, but he has a cross, but it sort of very nearly sails into the back of the net and sort of bounces off the crossbar. And unfortunately, Negrin not very good with the return sort of shot and sort of blasts it wide and high over the bar, but probably should have done better. Should at least be dead on target at the very least.
Well, it's not like I don't think it's a dissimilar chance to the one he tucks away. It's pretty much the same distance. Only difference is it sort of drop into him rather than it coming flat. Yeah, like for a player in that attacking role, his finishing is really pretty average of late. Like he had the chance in Belgrade that he sort of sclaffed and he should have scored. He had this one, eventually tucks one away. I think there was one against. Did he have one against Braga as well?
Well, he had a second one before he scores. So the other one was a better shot, forces the keeper to save, but probably again a good height for the goalkeeper. But that was a chance 5 minutes after that one that he missed. So he had the second chance. That was one where, So there was the double. It was a double chance, and then the third one he finally does score, where we get a press right, and we're running out of time, Paul. We're at 45 minutes. We better get on with it. So a moment of madness here. Callum Ward, Motherwell goalkeeper.
He's just got to put the laces. He's just got to put the laces through it at this point. It's just ridiculous. But yeah,
so he's tried to pass it. There's obviously 5 Celtic players pressing. The obvious answer here is to go long and catch 5 Celtic players up the park, but no, tries to pass it straight to Benji Niederin, and Niederin's like, "Thank you very much." And I mean, he does well with his finish. Like he still has to do. I mean, you're probably not going to get an easier sort of one-on-one sort of chance. The keeper basically passes the ball straight to you, but still does well with the finish. And he's running up to the crowd doing the old sort of cup in the year celebration. And like, meanwhile, Iheanacho's grabbed him and went, "Let's go, mate. We've got another goal to score here." Like,
exactly.
On, get back to the halfway line. Like, no time for this shit. Like, So
there's
a time and a place.
I liked Iheanacho's attitude basically all game, but certainly second half. Like, he's obviously played at the top. Like Nygren, this is as highest he's ever going to get, or he's ever got to so far. We'll see if he goes any higher. So he's probably still not used to that mentality of you've got to win every single game. He gets an equaliser in a game we've been down. He probably thinks he's got an opportunity to have a little celebration and sort of milk it. But Iheanacho's spot on. Like, we've got to go and win the game. There's nothing else for it. So he's dragging him back. I loved his reaction at the end when he was on the bench. Like, there's some footage. I don't know if you've seen it on social media. It's like taken behind. There's a few like even before the goal. He's heading every ball and involved in every press from the bench, and then he tears down the touchline to celebrate the winner. So yeah, Iheanacho's not there yet, obviously on full fitness and sharpness, but I think we've actually done well to get him on the books, and I think he will score plenty of goals once he gets up to speed.
I think you're right, Paul. He gets it. He understands what's expected. Like, being a professional, playing at Man City, at Leicester, he knows what's required. So yeah. So I mean, like I said, I liked his professionalism. So he sort of came off at 75 minutes, I think it was. Where did he come off?
78 for Balikwisha.
Yeah, 78. Yeah. Old man makes a comment here. The left back should have been booked. That was like that happened in open play. The game played on. It came to nothing. But how hard is it for the referee to run up and book him after the fact? I really don't. That was poor from the referee. And
then Engels did something similar and obviously gave the foul, but booked him. It's like he's a goldfish and he can't remember the previous. But this is just referees all over. We had more fouls than the opposition, despite having a higher possession. We were the only team that got bookings, 2 of them. Same old. Another poor refereeing performance. I don't know who this guy was. He looked like a younger guy, not full FIFA level yet.
Sort of recognize his name.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought just again, a lack of consistency.
Callum Scott was the referee.
Yeah, so something that wouldn't get called a foul for Motherwell was getting called a foul against us, and just that inconsistency again, and it's super frustrating, breaking up the game, slowing us down, and the playing advantage when there's no advantage, and then not pulling it back. I think there was one at the first half he played. Well, that sums it up. He played advantage for us, and there wasn't really a major advantage. And it didn't go anywhere. And instead of pulling it back, which was literally like 10 seconds, he didn't. And then second half, he did pull it back when Motherwell were in a similar scenario. He let them play on.
Yes,
it didn't come to anything. Yes, he pulled it back. So it's just, and then the pullback on the shirt, on the arm, just 2 absolutely like for like incidents treated completely differently. So yeah, just poor refereeing again, and we see it week in, week out. We should crack on. So yeah, we huffed and puffed after that until this point.
Yep. So this was 90 minutes plus 2. So there was 7 minutes of injury time, which in itself was probably amazing because we seem to get shortchanged at Celtic Park for injury time usually. So the fact that they realised,
I think we did. I think it could have been 8 or 9.
Well, it probably could have been, but the Motherwell players were dropping like flies by this point, so everyone needed treatment and what have you. But a little moments of brilliance. Well, I wouldn't say brilliance, just a moment of like decent play. But Engels to Balikwisha, and Balikwisha with probably his first forward pass for Celtic. Resulting in a goal. And Daiza Maeda, the man who played all three positions, started pretty average, got a little bit better at left wing, and obviously capped it off with a winning goal here. Diving header, makes no mistake, and obviously sends the crowd into elation. And I'm sure all the Celtic fans in the world, because, obviously part of you thinking, is it going to come? Is it not going to come? And then the funny thing was that we scored, and there was still another 4 minutes after that. And I'm going, it was just like the thing if we conceded an equaliser. But thankfully we didn't. But yeah, I was just kind of like, we could have left that a couple of minutes later, and then it wouldn't have been such a nervy 4 minutes at the end. But thankfully, I mean, really shouldn't be trying to write out games that sort of cynically. But yeah, like I said, it was a good passage of play, and a good sort of just a wee sort of glimpse of what Balikwisha is capable of. And I think he did have a pass before this, probably about 5-10 minutes before this, where he just does seem to have time on the ball. And if he does get time on the ball, he does seem to be able to find players like passing wise. So I think he's definitely a different option from Tanecki. He's not as pacey. He's not going to beat a man, take a man on. But if he gets in these sort of advanced positions and makes these sort of runs, almost call it the Matt O'Reilly run, that sort of underlap and run. He's got the quality to pick someone out. And for me, that's useful, particularly with packed defenses. So I think there's going to be a role for this guy to play. I don't think Brendan's figured out. I don't know anyone's figured out yet, but I think there's a player there. It's just not going to be explosive, taking on men and getting to the byline and whipping crosses. And I just don't think that's necessarily going to be his game. But if he can drift into pockets of space and pick up the ball, I think he could be deadly and cause opposition teams a bit of grief. But maybe I'd be a little bit optimistic. But he's another one that hasn't, like I said, he hasn't settled in yet. He's still, he came in at the end of the transfer window. As I said, we have a little bit of language barrier there as well. But Paul, sum up your feelings, mate. How did this one go for you?
Well, this is the high water mark of the match, really, in terms of, we put together a relatively what should be a relatively routine flowing move, which has basically been conspicuous by its absence most of the season. It's just a simple ball fed out to Engels. I'm a fan. I know you are, but he's not going to get any better sitting on the bench. This shows the kind of like his pressing, his running, and this kind of vision. It's a great little pass on his weaker foot, you'd argue, slips it in on the left, threading the eye of a needle stuff, picks up Balikwisha. I think Balikwisha's been playing sort of low risk, if you like, so far. Like, he's been getting little tiny smatterings of minutes, and he's been probably trying not to make a mess of anything. But the downside of that is he hasn't actually been trying anything, so there's been nothing positive. He's just been getting the ball with his back to goal and playing it back to the person that gave it to him or somebody else. So yeah, this is the first time he's got himself turned. And yeah, he's not listening. All he's done is receive it on the half turn, got himself turned, and got his head up and played a really great ball into a super dangerous area. And Mayeda's, he's only had 2 goals this season, both diving headers. It's another great run. He had a pretty average game, I'll be honest. He didn't really get much change on the right hand side. You're right, he looked a little bit better when he moved to the left, and obviously he kept going. And I think there's a lot to be said, to just keep fronting up and keep making your runs, and eventually, you'll get your just desserts. And he did. Like, it's a great header, brilliant delivery, and yeah, like you say, 4.5 minutes or whatever to see it through. I'd have rather we just kept going forward, but that wasn't really going to be the case. But yeah, kind of got out of jail again. But hopefully, it can be a catalyst for some more cohesive and more fluent performances over the weeks to come.
A message from our sponsors.
Hey mate, you are watching the least boring Celtic YouTube chat show in the world. And it is totally free. Jeez, that's got to be worth a subscribe, eh?
Please like and subscribe. It helps let other like-minded Celts find us. online. We're on all the socials, so feel free to get amongst it. And it's been a really active chat session in the chat tonight. Everyone's been talking with amongst themselves, so I appreciate everyone getting involved there. Let's bring up a few comments. 420, it was a necessary win. Yeah, absolutely. After Henrik McLaughlin, I brought your props to Maeda. I kept going right to the end, streaming my telly before then. Yep, he can frustrate. There was a cross, I think his first cross of the match. He put it out to touch, and I went, "Oh, is this the Maeda we're getting today?" But he definitely finished a lot better than he started. So 420 somewhere. It was a great win. And then Henrik McLaughlin saying, as Ange said, that league prizes ain't handed out in October. McLaughlin P, let's see what happens when it starts getting a wee bit choppy at Tynecastle. Yes, certainly not worried about Hearts at this stage. Just remember what happened to Aberdeen last year.
They haven't had a real test yet either, so that's the thing there. I'm not getting too concerned about that.
Not at all. Paul, man of the match. Daffabet gave it to Maeda, obviously for the winning goal. Have you got a better candidate?
If you're looking at somebody that played the 90 minutes, no. I'd be tempted to give it to Engels or Balikwisha or even Benji Nigrin. The only other player that started that I think is deserving of a mention is Iheanacho. I thought he did good work all day. He got himself into pockets of space. He looked dangerous, and he tucked his penalty away with aplomb. So it's one of those that nobody really covered themselves in glory for large parts of the game, and we kind of dug one out as a team. So I'll let you have the casting vote, mate.
Yeah, like Shevin in Iheanacho. I thought, he's starting to show the sort of quality of player that he can be. And I just thought that he treated his penalty well. Like you say, had a couple of wee sort of half chances there and there. But yeah, grabbing Nigrin at 2 each and getting him back, I thought that's a little bit of leadership for a new player. That's a good sign. So, seasoned pro, I just thought there was a lot to like there. And yeah, I totally agree. I loved all the stuff he was getting on the touchline. He was sort of quite animated. Usually you just see them there giggling with their mates or, whatever, but he was quite invested. So, yeah, no.
I think it's great to see a player come in and be invested from the first minutes, because we've clearly got players that are possibly, you could question their long-term investment, because some of them have been told they were going and then didn't, and others probably feel like they were due a move before now. So this is definitely a squad that's in need of transition. And I expect we will see more of that over the next 6 to 12 months for sure. So yeah, nice to see a player come in and show leadership. Only a few weeks down the track. So yeah, more to come from him, I think.
Any recommendations for this week, mate?
Of course. I'm actually going to go back 12 months nearly on the album recommendation. I've been meaning to recommend this at the end of last season and then the start of this, and I just haven't quite got around to it. But yeah, Aussie recommendation. The album is Cartoon Darkness, been out for just under 12 months. And the band is Amel and the Sniffers, Melbourne-based kind of punky band, female vocalist. Third album, probably the one that sort of broke them globally. I think they're probably spending a lot of time up in UK and Europe with festival scene, etc. So yeah, if you haven't already had a listen, give Amel and the Sniffers Cartoon Darkness a listen.
Thank you very much, mate. I was hoping to watch The House of Guinness on the weekends, but somehow my sister-in-law's Netflix has been disconnected. Netflix has caught up with us, so we need to just postpone that one until I can obtain that by other means. So yeah, I was a bit bummed, so I thought we'll just sit and watch a couple of episodes of that. But the other one I want to watch is Task. So that's the one with Mark Ruffalo. So he's like an FBI agent sort of thing. So yeah, that's the other one I've got on my to-do list, my to-watch list. But yeah, my to-watch list is getting longer and longer because for whatever reason, weekends don't seem to be spent watching telly, which is probably a good thing. But then at the same time, I don't really know what I did on my weekends. So anyway,
Yeah, House of Guinness definitely on my list. We've started watching that Monster, the Ed Gein story. So Ed Gein's basically the guy who the novel and movie Psycho was sort of based around. Technically, like they call him sort of the first serial killer. So yeah, Charlie Hunnam plays him. And it sort of flips back and forth across the time. I've only watched a couple of episodes, there's 8 episodes in total, but it sort of flips back and forth across the timeline and sort of shows him as a sort of troubled man, I guess, coming through those crimes, and then flashing forward to the likes of Hitchcock and Perkins, who brought the movie to life, and I guess there'll be other parts of his life sort of flick back and forth. So yeah, dramatization of a very creepy individual, killer and grave robber and organ collector. Yeah. A weird dude, and played brilliantly by Charlie Hunnam. Like he gets his creep on really well. So yeah, worth a look, I think, even after a couple of episodes.
Okay, I'll add that to the longer list.
Sorry, and Tom Hollander
Yes.
barely recognizable playing Alfred Hitchcock. Very well done as well. Yeah, so
Okay.
I love Hollander, but he's got some heavy makeup and prosthetics on to play Hitchcock.
Good show, gents. Thank you very much, Ampang Boy and Shawnee Boy saying good show, boys. Thank you, everyone, in the comments. It was a real active sort of show tonight, so I really appreciate everyone getting involved, catching up with your mates. It's great. We'll not be back next week because it's international break this week, so yay, Scotland. So we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Sunday night kickoff, Dundee away. So we'll be covering that at our usual time. I don't think the clocks have changed by then yet. Should still be 1:30 Celtic Park time. If it changes, we'll let you know on the socials, but I'm not aware of when the clocks change. But anyway, regardless, we're back in 2 weeks. Their main shows are still going ahead next week, so stay involved, all things Celtic, and hopefully the supporters groups get some sort of outcome from the meeting tonight. But if not, expect more fan action to follow. But we'll leave it there. So, Paul, as per usual, all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.